Imagine being at the forefront of one of the greatest moments in history before you've even turned 30. That was Edward Rutledge, the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. But who was this young revolutionary? Let's rewind to his beginnings to understand the man who would help shape a nation. Born into a prosperous family in 1749 in Charleston, South Carolina, Edward Rutledge grew up in a world where status and family name opened doors. Charleston was a bustling hub of commerce and politics, and the Rutledges were right at its heart. Young Edward didn't just inherit wealth, he inherited a legacy of influence. As was customary for young men of his stature, Edward crossed the ocean to study law at the Middle Temple in London. Picture this: a young American in the heart of the British Empire, walking the same streets as some of the greatest legal minds of the era. It was here, among the wigs and gowns of English barristers, that Edward's own legal and political perspectives began to take shape. When Rutledge returned to South Carolina, he was not just coming home. He was bringing back with him a wealth of knowledge and a sharpened mind. He quickly made his mark in the colonial legislature, a young voice among seasoned politicians. This was more than ambition, it was a calling. Edward Rutledge was not content to simply be a spectator in the unfolding drama of American politics. From his childhood in the elite circles of Charleston to the hallowed halls of English law, Rutledge's early years were a blend of Southern aristocracy and British legal tradition. This unique background laid the foundation for a man who would not only witness history, but play a pivotal role in it. And as the winds of change began to stir in the American colonies, Rutledge would find himself at the heart of the revolution that would redefine the world. As the colonial unrest against British rule intensified, a new chapter was opening for Edward Rutledge. It was a chapter that would thrust him onto the national stage, into the very heart of the American Revolution. In the Continental Congress, Rutledge found himself amidst a gathering storm of revolution. Here, he rubbed shoulders with giants of American history, the likes of John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. But Rutledge was not overshadowed. His sharp legal mind and eloquent speech made him a force to be reckoned with in the debates that would shape the future of the colonies. Initially, Rutledge was a voice of moderation. He, like many others, hoped for a peaceful reconciliation with Britain. But as the British response hardened, so did Rutledge's resolve. He began to see that independence was not just inevitable, but necessary. This transformation from a moderate to a revolutionary was not just personal. It mirrored the journey of a nation on the brink of birth. When it came to drafting the Declaration of Independence, Rutledge's role was pivotal. He was a fierce advocate for the interests of South Carolina, particularly on the contentious issue of the slave trade. Rutledge insisted on the removal of a clause condemning the slave trade, a move that highlights the complex and often contradictory nature of the American founding. This decision was a stark reminder of the compromises and moral dilemmas embedded in the nation's founding document. Imagine the heated debates in the sweltering Philadelphia summer, the fervent arguments, the clashing ideals. Rutledge standing firm, his voice echoing in the hall, as he navigates the turbulent waters of revolution and the crafting of a document that would change the world. In these crucial years, Edward Rutledge was more than a delegate from South Carolina. He was a shaping force in the creation of the United States. His journey from moderation to revolution, his role in the debates, and his influence on the Declaration itself were emblematic of a nation in turmoil, striving to find its identity. As the American Revolution raged, Edward Rutledge's journey took a turn from the halls of Congress to the battlefields of war. His involvement in the conflict demonstrated a deep commitment to the American cause, one that went beyond words and into action. Rutledge served as a captain in the South Carolina militia. His role wasn't just ceremonial. He was actively involved in the defense of his state against British forces. Picture him there, amidst the chaos and smoke of battle, leading his men not just as a politician, but as a soldier fighting for the ideals of independence and freedom. With the war over and independence won, Rutledge's story didn't end. He returned to political life with renewed vigor. His experience in the war had deepened his understanding of what the new nation needed. He served in the state legislature, and in 1798, he was elected as the governor of South Carolina. As governor, Rutledge's policies reflected both his conservative views and the needs of a state rebuilding after war. He focused on restoring order and promoting economic growth. His leadership style was marked by a pragmatic approach, balancing the interests of various groups within the state while navigating the complex political landscape of a new nation. Let's pause for a moment. How well do you remember Rutledge's journey? From his military service to his tenure as governor, each decision, each action played a role in shaping not just South Carolina, but also the young United States. Rutledge's years during and after the Revolution paint a picture of a man who was not only a thinker and a debater, but also a doer. His transition from a soldier in the militia to a leader in the State House exemplifies the multifaceted roles played by the Founding Fathers in building the new nation. As we explore the final chapter in the story of Edward Rutledge, we confront the complexities and contradictions that marked not only his life, but the era he lived in. Central to understanding Rutledge is his stance on one of history's most contentious issues: slavery. Rutledge, like many of his contemporaries in the South, was a slave owner. His position on slavery was a product of his time and environment, deeply intertwined with the economic and social fabric of South Carolina. This aspect of his life presents a stark contrast to the ideals of liberty and justice that he and other Founding Fathers fought for. It's a contradiction that forces us to grapple with the complex nature of history and the people who shape it. When we assess Rutledge's legacy, we find ourselves balancing on a tightrope of admiration and critique. On one hand, he was a young, vibrant leader who played a significant role in America's fight for independence and its early governance. On the other, his views on slavery remind us of the flawed nature of our heroes and the contradictions inherent in all of history, and that we cannot always look at history with modern ethics and understanding in focus. What does Edward Rutledge's story mean for us today? It challenges us to understand history in its full context, to recognize the achievements while also acknowledging the failings. Rutledge's life is a reminder that history is not black and white, but filled with shades of gray. It encourages us to reflect on our own values and beliefs and how they shape our understanding of the past. As we conclude our journey through Edward Rutledge's life, I encourage you to dive deeper. Explore the stories of Rutledge and other lesser-known Founding Fathers. Engage in discussions about their roles and impacts, and consider how their legacies inform our understanding of American history. Remember, history is not just about the past. It's a conversation between the past and the present, and you are a part of that conversation. And that does it for this episode of Revolutionary Minds, the Architects of American Liberty. Thank you very much for joining us, and I encourage you to watch this next video in our series. Also, keep an eye out for our new episode each week, where we explore different Founding Fathers and their impact on our nation and the world beyond.